Okay, so in case you couldn't tell, we are coming to the end of the Ready or Not lore series. At the time of making this video, there are 2 maps left to cover, Carriers of the Vine and Checkin' In. And let me tell you, those maps have absolutely nothing in terms of lore. No new magazines, notes, dialogue, nothing. Hell, I can't even make a 6-minute bullshit video again. So here's what we're gonna do. This will be a twofer. I'm going to briefly cover both maps as best as I can, as well as do a quick faction lore wrap-up. The next episode, which will be the last, will be the big Ready or Not timeline video where I will put together a map of how to play each mission in order. So, without further ado, welcome to the Ready or Not lore series, where in today's penultimate episode, we will discuss the missions Carriers of the Vine and Checkin' In. This video will be divided up into 2 sections, the first being all in-game / developer confirmed information, and the second being a total wrap-up of the faction lore. Let's begin with Carriers of the Vine. An officer has been killed in the line of duty. He lays dead on the driveway of Sharisa Farms. D Platoon is to deploy and clear this strange compound. Exploring the area, it appears that this group is preparing for war. They have barricaded windows, set up sniper posts, and patrol the grounds as if this farm is their new compound. Their weaponry is also quite expansive, with a couple of them rocking my beloved M14 that I wish was accessible in the base game, but is only currently accessible with mods. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this map. However, it is important to note that the enemies and civilians are currently placeholders. Apparently, there are plans to replace the enemies with some kind of cult. I was able to find some concept art showcasing their potential designs, and based on these designs, it appears that these guys will introduce a whole new faction to the game. So, when they are introduced, I have a feeling this map will have all sorts of juicy lore to dig into. Regardless, that is all we know about this map for now. Moving on to Checkin' In, D Platoon is to deploy on site and clear the key floors of the Wenderley Hills Hotel. There are multiple civilians inside, with very dangerous, deceptive suspects amongst them. A secondary objective on this map also includes recovering a woman named Belle Brady. Apparently, she is the daughter of some senator, and according to the objective, he was the one who set the mission parameters. Looking around Wenderley Hills Hotel, we see it is currently under mass renovations, with the floor we enter being in complete disarray. Also, it's interesting to note that in a magazine found on other maps, the Wenderley Hills Hotel is apparently haunted. Some lights flicker when traversing this mission, and that could be chalked up to faulty wiring or a ghost. Make of that what you will. Moving up to another floor, we see a large suite that was trashed after what I assume was some kind of rager. A large skull is spray painted on the wall, which makes me think these enemies should be biker gang related, but currently they look like just generic bad guys in masks. So based on this, I have a feeling Belle Brady was partying with some kind of biker gang, doing drugs and other scandalous things. Her father, Senator Brady, doesn't want his name to be ruined by his daughter, so maybe he lies about something going on in the hotel. D Platoon is called in, and they accidentally escalate the situation, resulting in a shootout. And that's about it for this map. These 2 maps are very, very, very empty. At the time of making this video, there is nothing going on. So let's move on to a quick recap of all the factions and story threads we've covered so far. At the bottom of the enemy food chain, we have the meth heads. These are the guys who can be found at the gas station and the meth house. They, to me, seem like puppets. They're just kind of doing their thing in order to get another hit, and don't really care who their master is. Which leads us to our next group, Los Locos. These guys are a cartel operating out of Los Suenos in Mexico. Currently, they only appear at the post office, but there are references to them at the meth house, and potentially the cooks wearing those bags over their heads are Los Locos members. These guys are pissed at the US and are furthering the border crisis by potentially poisoning the Los Suenos water supply in order to get back at America for their lack of support to Mexico during this drought. In the future, this faction will appear on the map Coyote. Next, we have 2 factions that I'll lump into one, Mindjot and Bolton Private Security. Found at the Mindjot facility, Brixley Talent Time, and Vols Mansion. These guys are not necessarily bad guys, they simply work for bad people because they need to make ends meet. It is unknown if Bolton and Mindjot know the shady things their employers are doing, but I imagine they have some kind of notion, but don't say anything in order to get that paycheck. Moving on to another group, we have Amos Vol and George Brixley. The two have been kidnapping kids from the poorer regions of Los Suenos and potentially all over the world. Brixley scouts for him and then brings the kids to Vol in order to prolong their CP ring. Next, we have the traffickers. These guys can be found at the port and the car dealership. They have been known to traffic women from all over the world into Los Suenos' Port Hoken, which then sends them to Caesar's car dealership, where they are then distributed to places all over Los Suenos, like the meth house, post office, Brixley's Talent Time, and the nightclub. They are affiliated with Brixley and Vol, but don't solely deal with kids like they do. It seems their main export are women in their teens and early 20s to be sex trafficked to the highest bidders across the world. Now we move on to some heavy hitters, not just some lowly gangsters or druggies. First, we have the Left Behind, a group made up of disillusioned ex-vets who are fed up with their treatment and adamantly protest against Senator Fremont and his vet funding cut bill he wishes to pass. They appear on the apartment map and attempt to assassinate Senator Fremont, but it is unclear if they succeeded or not. These guys have military training and are very dangerous. Moving on, we have The Hand, a Yemeni terrorist group launching attacks on U.S. soil in response to the U.S. airstriking a town in Yemen called Midi. The Hand have no quarrel with civilian casualties. In fact, civilians are their main targets. They appear at the nightclub and hospital and most likely have the highest body count out of any faction we've faced. Though it's not confirmed, we suspect their leader, who was injured during the nightclub massacre and brought to the hospital, escaped, continuing the threat of The Hand. Now we have not necessarily a faction, but a man, Gerard Scott. He is an ex-USIA analyst who potentially got too close to the sun and was burned. We theorized he was mind-diddled by the USIA as multiple notes scattered across his cabin hint at the USIA continuing some kind of MK Ultra-like experiment. He is crazy, but there may be some kind of logic to his madness. It's also worth pointing out that he somehow knows one of the operators from D Platoon, Judge. Yet we don't know how he knows him or why Judge is important. Anyway, Gerard leads us to the big faction, the USIA. They are the in-universe stand-in for the CIA. We know they do a lot of shady things and are potentially working on some sort of MK Ultra mind control experiment. In Gerard's cabin, we see references to their work, assassinations, and declassified documents. We don't know exactly what they're up to or planning, but they could be affiliated with the next faction, the Spider. This is a spider symbol found at the meth house, port, and car dealership. The symbol appears to be a spider with its 8 legs being made up of 8 people. We have theorized that the spider is involved with the creation and distribution of drugs and trafficked girls in Los Suenos. Potentially, and this is a big potentially, the spider might have ties to the USIA. A theory that I'm inclined to believe is that the USIA is wanting to continue their MK Ultra mind control experiments, or some other kind of experiment, by testing new substances on the meth heads of Los Suenos. Essentially, they get a shipment of drug-making supplies, the spider agents taint the supplies with this new substance they want to test out, the tainted drugs get shipped out, and they simply sit back and watch the results. They also potentially buy trafficked girls and experiment on them directly, as we can find the signed receipt at the dealership. This is all we really know about the spider, but I feel like they are very important for something in the future. Finally, we have the MLO, and we know nothing. There are references to them on some of Gerard's notes, but that is it. Allegedly, they are some kind of fringe group made up of military and police, but that's all we know about them. Maybe they tie into the spider, but who knows? And that is currently the known factions in Ready or Not. Next, in the final episode, I will be compiling all the maps and in-game information in order to play these missions in order, so be on the lookout for that one.